Last week at my daughter's house, things took a turn I never expected. My name is Mark, and I'm 52. I recently retired from my job as an accountant. I went to help my daughter Leah settle into her new Victorian house. She moved back from the city, and I thought it would be nice to support her. As soon as I stepped inside, it felt familiar but off. It was old, and I could tell. When I got to the basement, a musty smell hit me. It was strong and made my stomach turn. "Leah," I said, "there's a weird smell down here." She shrugged it off, claiming it was just old wood. I wasn't convinced. I asked my son-in-law Todd about it, hoping he'd feel the same. Instead, he got really tense and told me to ignore it. The look on his face sent chills down my spine. The days that followed were unsettling. The smell got worse. It wafted through the house, even into rooms where we hadn't unpacked. No matter where I went, I felt the smell hovering nearby. At night, I heard strange noises, creaks that seemed alive. The lights flickered randomly and I was always on edge. Their dog barked at nothing in the dark, adding to my unease. Todd changed too. He frequently checked the basement door, looking paranoid. When I asked him what was wrong, he mumbled something about the house not being right. I didn't know what to make of it. I wanted to reassure them, but I felt a knot in my stomach growing tighter. One afternoon I stood by the basement door. I felt drawn to it. I reached for the handle, but Todd suddenly shouted, "Back off!" His frantic tone made my blood run cold. I pulled my hand away, confused. What could scare him this much? Things escalated that night. Leah and Todd went out, leaving me alone. The smell was stronger than ever. I felt it wrap around me like a heavy blanket. Then I heard a loud bang from the basement. My heart raced, but my feet felt glued to the spot. "Is anyone down there?" I called. Silence answered. For a moment I was terrified. I wanted to go down, but something stopped me. The air felt thick. I couldn't catch my breath. I turned to leave when I heard Todd's voice from the basement. "We need to get out of here." The urgency in his voice struck me. I bolted for the door, my mind racing. What was down there? I never did find out, and that thought lingers with me now. Is it still waiting in the dark? What does that house really hold? I can't shake the feeling that something has been unleashed. The following morning was filled with anxiety. I paced the living room, trying to shake off the night's events. Leah was at work, and Todd was holed up in the basement again. He'd been down there a lot more than I'd noticed before. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping in. I considered giving him a call, but I hesitated. What could I possibly say? Instead, I decided to step outside for some fresh air. I walked around the yard, trying to convince myself that it was just an old house. Nothing more. As I examined the gardens, the unease returned. The wind whispered through the trees, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then I noticed a few of the garden statues, which I could have sworn hadn't been there the day before. They were peculiar, a set of 3, each depicting a child in some sort of distress. I took a step closer, examining them. The faces seemed too lifelike for mere stone, their expressions locked in pain. I took a step back, feeling a chill travel down my spine. Who would have placed these here? At that moment, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Todd. "Mark, can you come downstairs? I need you," he said, his voice shaky. I agreed, my gut churning. As I opened the basement door, the smell hit me like a wall. It was pungent and heavy, like rot mixed with something metallic. It made me gag. I hesitated, keeping my hand on the doorknob, but Todd sounded desperate. "Please, hurry!" Swallowing hard, I stepped inside. The stairs creaked ominously beneath my feet. The air felt different, almost electric. Todd was standing by the far wall, his expression torn between fear and urgency. "I think I found something," he said, pointing to an old trunk that sat against the wall. It was dusty and covered with cobwebs, as if it had been forgotten. "I was going through some things, and it—" His voice trailed off. I stepped closer to the trunk, my curiosity piqued. "What is it?" I asked cautiously. He opened the trunk just a crack, and I instantly felt a breeze rush past me, cold and unnatural. There was something inside. I leaned in, trying to peer through the dim light. That's when I saw it. A bunch of old newspaper clippings stacked together, yellowed with age. "What do they say?" I asked, feeling an uneasy excitement creep in. Todd hesitated, as if the clippings held a secret he wasn't ready to share. "I haven't read them all, but it's about the house," he replied slowly. "And a family that went missing." My heart dropped. My mind raced with the images from the statues outside. What happened here? I pressed him to show me. As he held the trunk open wider, the smell intensified. A gnawing instinct told me to step back, and then everything went dark. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into total darkness. I felt the chill in the air sharpen around me, a weight settling in the room. I couldn't breathe. "Mark?" Todd's voice quivered in the dark. "Where are you?" His panic ignited my own, and I fumbled to find the wall, trying to navigate my way back. Something shifted behind us, something that felt very much alive. "Get out! Now!" I shouted. The urgency in my voice echoed back at me, but before we could move, a low growl rumbled from the shadows. I froze at the growl. It felt like a living thing, resonating with a deep, hollow vibration that settled in my bones. "Todd, we need to go," I urged again, but my heart raced. He was still at the trunk, fumbling his fingers over the newspaper clippings. "Wait! I think I can see something." His voice trembled as he strained to look deeper into the trunk. "No!" I shouted, fear giving my words a sharp edge. "We don't have time." A sudden crash echoed through the basement, rattling the shelves. My pulse quickened, and an instinct to survive kicked in. I grabbed Todd's arm and yanked him away from the trunk, dragging him toward the stairs. I could feel vibrations reverberating through the floor, something powerful stirring in the darkness. "Did you hear that?" Todd's eyes were wild with panic. I nodded but kept us moving. "We need to get out now." As we reached the top of the stairs, the lights flickered once more before plunging us into total darkness again. The basement door creaked as if something were trying to push its way through. "Mark! It's stuck!" Todd yelled. He pushed against the door, but it didn't budge. The growling had grown louder, circling around us, drawing nearer. "Use your shoulder!" I shouted, my voice shaky. My instinct screamed that something was coming for us, something more than just a burst of adrenaline and fear. Todd threw himself against the door with all his weight. It bucked under the force, and finally it cracked open wide enough for us to slip through. We stumbled out, all but tumbling onto the hallway floor. The air up here felt different. Thinner, almost suffocating. I quickly shut the basement door behind us, pressing my back against it. We both gasped for air, but the smell of decay lingered in my nostrils, a bitter reminder of what we'd just left. "What the hell was that?" Todd gasped, still caught between shock and terror. I could hardly respond. My mind raced back to the clippings. Could they connect to the growl? Was the house protecting something? I don't know, but we need to figure this out. We can't let it go. I finally said, trying to steady my voice. "Let's go through those clippings. Maybe we can find answers." Against my better judgment, I led Todd back toward the living room, knowing we weren't safe yet. I reached for the trunk, half hoping it would be empty. Instead, it was still open, the clippings scattered across the floor in the dim light seeping through the window. I knelt to gather the disheveled articles. One headline caught my eye. "Family vanishes without a trace. The mystery of Westwood House." My heart raced. Suddenly I heard a thud from the basement door behind us, a heavy impact that made the wood creak under pressure. Both Todd and I whipped around, dread creeping back into my heart. Whatever had been lurking below wasn't finished with us yet. "Mark!" Todd whispered, eyes wide. It was only a moment later that I heard it. Footsteps pounding up the stairs, slamming against the wood. And then, silence. The silence stretched between us, an unbearable tension hanging in the air. My heart thudded in my chest as I scanned the room. If something was coming, we needed to be ready. Todd and I shared a look, an unspoken agreement to stay alert. "Let's find something we can use," I said, breaking the silence. My voice felt small, but it was better than standing there paralyzed. I grabbed the nearest lamp, its bulb flickering ominously. Todd picked up a heavy candlestick. We turned our attention to the door. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the basement, and the floor trembled beneath us. The growl roared back to life, deeper and more guttural, vibrating through the walls. "Mark, we need to leave. Now!" Todd's face was pale, his grip tightening on the candlestick. "No, we can't let it chase us." My voice was firmer now. I could feel the adrenaline surging, pushing back fear. I was angry, but more than that, I was determined to get answers. "What if it comes up here?" Todd's eyes darted to the door as though at any moment it would burst open. "Then we fight," I said, lifting the lamp like a shield. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I turned back to the scattered papers on the floor. There had to be something more, some clue hidden in the articles. I flipped through them quickly, searching for anything that would help. "Look!" Todd pointed at one clipping. "There's a name, the last family to live here. The Wilsons." Wilson. The name rang familiar. I could almost hear it echoing in the back of my mind. What happened to them? "They disappeared without a trace." Todd read aloud, his voice trembling. The implication sank into me like a stone. Before I could respond, a loud bang jolted my attention. The door creaked ominously, and splinters started to form along the edges as something slammed against it. "Todd!" I shouted, my heart racing again. "We need to—" Then everything went dark. The lights flickered out completely. I felt a warm rush of panic flood my veins. My breath quickened. "We have to find a way out." I fumbled in the darkness, trying to maintain my sense of direction. "I can't see anything." Todd's voice cut through the darkness, shaky and desperate. I grabbed his arm. "Follow my voice." Together we stumbled away from the pounding noise coming from the basement door. But then, I froze, crouched on the floor, half hidden in the shadows. Something glinted. Something sharp and jagged. "What is it?" Todd whispered, barely audible. I reached down, feeling the cold metal against my fingers. It was a key. "This might be important," I said, holding it up for him to see. But before I could explain, the door burst open. A figure emerged from the dark. "Run!" I yelled, lurching toward the hall. But as we bolted, a chilling voice echoed after us. "You shouldn't have come here." We sprinted down the hall, my heart pounding in my ears. I could hear Todd's heavy breaths behind me, and I prayed he was keeping up. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around us like a thick fog. I barely noticed the corners of the walls as I ran, but each step echoed in my mind. "Where are we going?" Todd gasped, dodging a piece of furniture. anywhere but here," I shouted back, still clutching the key. The memory of that chilling voice sent ice down my spine. It felt like a warning, and I didn't want to find out why. Suddenly I skidded to a stop. An old door loomed ahead, slightly ajar, with dim light spilling from the crack. "In there!" I pointed, and we slipped inside just as I heard footsteps behind us, slow and deliberate. Inside, the room was cluttered with dusty boxes and old furniture. I fumbled for the light switch and found it after a nervous second. A harsh overhead bulb flickered to life, illuminating an eerie collection of antiques. A rocking chair creaked softly as a gust of cold air rushed through, making the hair on my neck rise. "Is this a safe place?" Todd asked, his voice laced with panic. "I don't know, but it's better than being out there," I replied, trying to calm my racing heart. I noticed a small window on the far wall. It was just high enough that escaping through it would be tough, but it might be our only hope if that thing found us. I hurried toward it, peering out through the grime. We could not stay here long. "Look!" Todd pointed at something on the wall, an old framed photograph. I stepped closer, recognizing the image of a smiling family. The woman in the picture looked exactly like Todd's sister, Michelle. Confusion swirled in my mind. "How do they have a photo of her?" "That's not possible," Todd protested, his voice trembling. "That picture's from when my parents were alive. That must be my Uncle Glenn and his family." "So they lived here?" I asked, feeling the weight of a realization bearing down on us. He nodded, but the shock was palpable. "But they died in a car accident years ago. My family never even talked about Glenn or his kids." I turned back to the window, scanning the yard beyond. Something shifted in the shadows, perhaps a trick of the dim light, but it set my nerves on edge again. "We need to figure out why this is happening," I insisted, feeling the urgency seep into my voice. "Mark!" Todd's whisper trembled as he pointed to the ground. There, half buried in dust and debris, was a small rusted box. Its hinges were broken, and it seemed important somehow. "Help me get it open." I dropped to my knees, feeling my heart race faster. Maybe this box held answers. But just as Todd knelt beside me, the door burst open behind us. "I told you, you shouldn't have come here." The voice boomed again, cold and menacing, drowning out everything else. The sound of the door slamming open sent a jolt through me. My instinct screamed for us to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I glanced at Todd, whose wide eyes mirrored my own terror. "Get behind that shelf!" I hissed, pointing to a tall stack of boxes against the wall. We scrambled for cover, my heart racing. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the small room. They were getting closer. "What do we do?" Todd whispered urgently, his voice almost a squeak. "Shh." I pressed my finger to my lips, straining to hear the footsteps. They stopped just outside the room. I could barely breathe. The presence loomed just beyond the door, and I fought the urge to peek. A foul smell crept into the room, a mix of decay and something far worse. I felt bile rise in my throat. My gaze darted to the box we'd found earlier, hidden under the dust. A thought struck me. Maybe the box contained something to help. "Mark," Todd whispered, his voice trembling. "What's in there?" I had no idea, but I nodded slowly. Let's just hope it's something good. As the footsteps shifted slightly, something inside me snapped. I had to look. Carefully, I crawled on my hands and knees, inching toward the box. The closer I got, the more the smell seemed to cling to me. A part of me wanted to turn back, but curiosity pulled me forward. I reached the box and unlatched it with shaking fingers. It creaked open. Inside lay a collection of old letters, yellowed and fraying at the edges. I felt a flicker of disappointment, but then I spotted something metallic glinting at the bottom. I grabbed it and pulled it out. It was a locket, tarnished and heavy in my palm. "Todd, look," I mouthed, holding it up. Before I could show him more, the door swung wide open with a crash. The figure stepped into the light, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a gaunt man, his eyes dark and hollow, and a twisted smile on his lips. "You shouldn't have come here," he said again, his voice a low hiss. "This place holds memories you can't handle." My pulse quickened. Memories? What did he mean? My grip tightened around the locket, and before I could think, I flung it at him. It sailed through the air and struck him on the chest. He staggered back as if the impact had stunned him. "Run!" I shouted, scrambling to my feet. Todd followed and we bolted for the door, my heart pounding louder than ever. As we burst outside, the night air felt like a slap in the face. We stumbled into the yard, but a chilling laugh echoed behind us. I dared a glance back to see the man standing in the doorway, eyes flashing with fury. "What did you find?" he shouted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think these old things can save you?" That's when I saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows of the trees behind him. I froze. Another presence. "Mark!" Todd yelled. "We need to move," but my instincts screamed that we were not done yet. There was something more to uncover before we could escape this nightmare. I turned, my heart pounding in my ears, and locked eyes with the new figure. It was a woman, her hair tangled and wild, her clothes in tatters. She moved slowly, her gaze fixed on the locket in my hand. There was something haunting about her expression, as if she recognized it. "Mark, we have to go!" Todd's voice broke through the tension, but I couldn't tear myself away. "Wait," I responded, my voice catching. "She might... Please, you don't understand." The woman's voice trembled as she stepped forward. "You need to leave this place. It's not safe." The gaunt man behind her hissed, "Don't listen to her. She's just another victim trying to trap you here." Fear coursed through me. Who was she? Did she know something that could help us? Her eyes darted between Todd and me, pleading. "Listen," I said, the urgency pressing down on me. "Do you know him? Do you know what he wants?" "I know what he wants," she replied, her voice trembling. "And it's the same thing that happened to us. He feeds off our fear and pain. You have to leave now before it's too late." I could see Todd's fear rising. I didn't want to stay either, but everything felt tangled. "What does the locket have to do with this?" I blurted out, holding it up for her to see. Her eyes widened. "That locket? It belongs to my daughter. I lost her here. You must not let it touch him." The man laughed, a deep mocking sound that sent chills down my spine. "You think you can save her? It's already too late." Panic surged through me, and as I glanced back and forth between them, time felt distorted. "Our only chance is to figure out what this place holds," I said, struggling to stay calm. "There must be a reason you're here, right?" "Stop!" the gaunt man yelled, stepping forward, his face twisted in rage. "You're not allowed to know. You don't belong." I could feel the weight of his fury pushing against me. "Then help us," I pleaded with the woman. "What do we do?" Suddenly she began to fade, her figure shimmering like a mirage. "Listen to the letters," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They hold the truth. Find them before it's too late." Then everything went dark. I turned back, but the man lunged. I barely dodged his grasp, racing for the thicket of trees that loomed in the distance. Todd followed closely, his feet pounding against the ground beside me. "Mark, what just happened?" he gasped, trying to keep up. What did she mean? I think it's connected to the letters, I shouted back. We have to find them before he catches us. The darkness enveloped us, branches snagging at our clothes. A sense of urgency consumed me. What had the woman meant? The locket, the letters. They were all part of something bigger, something dangerous. But as we reached the edge of the trees, a bone-chilling laugh echoed behind us. We weren't safe yet. We plunged into the shadowy maze of trees, the branches snapping back like angry fingers as we pushed deeper into the darkness. I could hardly see where we were going, but fear propelled me forward. Behind us, the man's laughter faded, but I could still feel his presence looming in the air. Do you think she meant letters as in physical letters or something else? Todd asked breathlessly. I don't know, I replied, glancing back. But we need to figure it out fast. That guy, he's dangerous. As we moved further in, the ground became uneven. I stumbled over roots and rocks, nearly losing my balance. Todd reached out, grabbing my arm to steady me. His grip was tight, almost desperate. Mark, what if we end up like her? What if we can't escape? His voice trembled, laced with panic. I swallowed hard. I couldn't let him see my unease. We won't let that happen. We just have to keep going. After a few minutes, we broke through the thickest part of the woods. To our relief, we stumbled upon a clearing lit by the pale glow of a sliver of moonlight. In the center stood an old decrepit cabin. It looked abandoned, its windows shattered and the door slightly ajar. Maybe we can find something in there, I suggested, feeling a flicker of hope. That's the last place I want to go, Todd replied, his voice barely a whisper. What if he follows us? We can't stand out here. Let's just check it quickly, I urged. The letters could be in there. Reluctantly, Todd nodded. Together we approached the cabin, the floor creaking ominously under our weight as we stepped inside. Dust lay thick on every surface, and the air felt stale, as if the room hadn't breathed in years. I moved cautiously, scanning the walls and the piles of forgotten furniture. Do you see anything? Just then, Todd pointed to a small table in the corner. Over there, looks like a stack of old papers. I hurried over, my heart racing with anticipation. Picking up the top sheet, I could barely make out the faded ink. It was a letter, its contents barely legible. I sifted through the papers, my fingers trembling as I found more. Dozens of them, all yellowed with age. What do they say? Todd asked, peering over my shoulder. I unfolded the nearest letter, its words coming to life as I read aloud. Dear Clara, I'm sorry for what you had to endure. The truth is buried here, and only those who seek it can find peace. A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that the letters held a secret. But before I could dig deeper, we heard a rustling outside. Todd, did you hear that? I whispered, my heart plummeting. He nodded, eyes wide. We have to hide. Without thinking, I shoved the letters into my jacket, and we crouched behind a fallen beam. As the noise approached, a familiar voice drifted through the air. Where are you? The gaunt man from before. My breath hitched. We weren't safe at all. What were we going to do now? The voice drew nearer, echoing in the stillness of the cabin. I pressed myself flat against the beam, every instinct screaming for me to stay silent. Todd's eyes were wide, filled with terror, as he nodded towards the door. We had to do something. But what? Maybe if we wait until he's gone, I whispered, my voice shaky. Or maybe he'll check in here, Todd replied, panic creeping in. What if he finds us? I scanned the room, my mind racing for a plan. I could barely hear the man's footsteps crunching through the underbrush outside, but I could feel the dread building in my stomach. If he comes in, we'll have to make a run for it. Before I could finish the thought, the cabin door creaked open. We both froze, holding our breath. I could see the silhouette of the man against the faint moonlight. He stepped inside, his presence heavy in the stale air. "I know you're here," he called out, his voice low and threatening. "You can't hide from me." I clenched my fists, desperate for a way out. The old furniture looked like it might provide enough cover, but we couldn't stay here. Suddenly I noticed a window at the back of the cabin, partially boarded up. If we could sneak out unnoticed. The man stepped further inside, and I motioned to Todd, trying to communicate my plan silently. He nodded slightly, his face pale. I took a deep breath and started to edge away from our hiding spot. Every creak of the floor felt like thunder. I moved slowly, staying low, glancing back to see if the man was still preoccupied with his search. Instead, his eyes seemed to fixate on us, and a sinister smile spread across his face. "There you are," he exclaimed. "I thought you might be more difficult to find." I bolted towards the window, adrenaline surging through me, and felt Todd close behind. Just as I reached the window, I heard the man shout, and my heart raced. I threw myself through the opening, glass splintering around me, and landed hard on the damp ground outside. "Go!" I yelled, scrambling to my feet. Todd followed, but I could hear the man crashing through the cabin behind us. There was no time to waste. We sprinted into the woods, branches whipping against our skin, the darkness closing in around us. Then, as we ran, something caught my eye, a glimmer on the ground. I hesitated only for a second. I had to know what it was. I bent down, grabbing the object, and as I stood up, I realized it was a key. "Mark, we need to keep moving," Todd shouted, panic lacing his tone. I could hear the man's footsteps gaining on us. The key felt heavy in my hand, but something about it felt crucial, like it could unlock more than just doors. "We can't stop," Todd urged, glancing back. "He's coming." "Wait, this could be important," I said, looking at the key again. "I think I know where it fits." The shadows blurred past me as I turned toward the direction of the cabin once more. Each breath came harder, but there was urgency now. Just as I thought we could gain some ground, a voice echoed through the trees behind us, more menacing than before. "Run all you want. You can't escape the truth." I shivered, knowing what he meant. The truth, whatever it was still out there waiting for us. And I had a feeling it wasn't far behind. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the tangled maze of trees as we sprinted back towards the cabin. My heart raced not just from exertion, but from the weight of the key in my palm. Either this would be our salvation, or another trap laid by the gaunt man. "Mark, we can't go back in there," Todd gasped, nearly tripping as we reached the clearing. His fear was palpable, and I didn't blame him. The memory of that twisted smile haunted me, but we might uncover what this key unlocks. I insisted, gripping his arm tightly as I glanced toward the cabin's darkness. "We won't find answers in the woods." Reluctant resignation washed over Todd's face, but he nodded. Together we closed in on the cabin, the weight of our footsteps a stark contrast to the ominous silence surrounding us. I could hear the rustling of leaves, each sound magnified in the cold night air. As we crept inside, the stale air wrapped around us like a heavy fog. I flicked on my phone's light, illuminating the peeling wallpaper and the junked furniture. "The cellar!" I exclaimed, recalling the trapdoor I had spotted earlier. "Let's check there first." Todd hesitated. "What if he's waiting for us? He can't be everywhere at once." I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I could almost hear the man's voice echoing in my mind. You shouldn't have come here. But we had to confront whatever fear swelled within these walls. Cautiously, we moved toward the far wall, and I found the trapdoor. It was slightly ajar, almost beckoning us down. I shot Todd a look and pushed it open, the hinges squeaking ominously. The stairs descended into darkness, and I hesitated. "Are you ready?" I asked, glancing at Todd. His eyes were wide, uncertainty etched on his face. "Just remember, whatever's down there, it might not be what we expect." With that ominous reminder, I nodded and descended into the depths of the cabin. My footfalls echoed in the dark space, a stark reminder of our solitude. At the bottom, I pulled my phone out, the screen lighting the room dimly. The cellar was more expansive than I anticipated, filled with debris and old furniture. The smell was less musty here, replaced by something faintly sweet, yet still unpleasant. Suddenly I spotted a wooden chest across the room. Old and intricately carved, it seemed to pulse with a quiet energy. "There," I pointed, my heart racing. We approached the chest, and I could feel the weight of the moment. I turned the key in my hand, fingers trembling as it hovered over the lock. "Do you think this is it?" Todd asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I hope so. We won't know until we try," I replied. With determined breaths, I knelt before the chest and pressed the key into the rusted lock. It clicked open, the lid creaking as I lifted it. Inside, a collection of artifacts lay nestled among papers. Old letters bound by red string, a tattered photo, and something glimmering in the corner of the box. "What is that?" Todd asked, peering closely at the objects. Slowly I lifted the glimmering item, a locket that looked strikingly familiar. My pulse quickened as I remembered the woman outside, the one who had spoken of loss. Suddenly a chilling thought gripped me. Could this be her daughter's? I opened the locket. Inside there were two pictures. One of a girl, perhaps around Leah's age, and beside it, an elderly woman whose resemblance to the gaunt man was unmistakable. "That's him," I whispered, all the puzzle pieces suddenly fitting together, ominously. The growl from earlier echoed behind me, and I froze, instinctively looking over my shoulder. "Todd," I said slowly, panic gripping my chest. "We need to leave. Now." But before he could respond, the air grew thick, and I felt the very shadows of the room twisting around us. I slammed the locket shut and motioned for Todd to help me close the chest. As we clambered back towards the stairs, the growl shook the floor. "He knows we're here," I breathed heavily. We rushed upwards, adrenaline propelling us forward. Just as we reached the top, the cabin door burst open, and the gaunt figure stood framed by the doorway, eyes now a blazing fury. "Did you find what you were looking for?" he hissed, stepping into the room with a predatory grace. "No!" I shouted, my voice filled with fear. "But we don't intend to stay." With that, Todd and I bolted towards the back window. The sound of the man's laughter echoed behind us as we scrambled through, and the cool night air rushed to meet us, a stark contrast to the horrors inside. We fell into the bushes and kept running, not daring to look back until we made it to the trees. But the lingering question remained. What truly lay hidden within that house? And was the danger truly over? The chilling laughter faded behind us, but the truth began to stir inside me. "We need to tell Leah," Todd panted as we halted at the edge of the yard. "I don't know what to say," I replied, feeling the uncertainty clawing at my throat. But as we stood there, a question nagged at me. How much of what we experienced was real, and how much was the manifestation of the darkness? I looked back at the cabin, now just a silhouette against the light of the moon. I moved to leave, but one more glance at the house sent a shiver down my spine. Whatever it held vanished with us. "Mark, did we really escape?" Todd asked softly, the uncertainty in his voice echoing my own thoughts. I really don't know, I admitted, walking away. The darkness still loomed in my mind, now flickering like a distant memory. But questions lingered about the locket and the family that haunted that house. I didn't know what would follow, and that uncertainty nestled deep in my chest as I moved forward. We were out, but our encounter had left an indelible mark on our souls. One that would likely stay with us for a long time. And so, as we left, the image of the cabin faded into the night. But the mystery remained, lurking just beyond the shadows.